everybody. Welcome to Sama, Sales Circuit Music and Art in Vancouver, our beautiful city to the north. I'm here with Darek Ripper, and if you've been obviously watching our programs, our reels, and our stories, you know that I've known Darek for quite a while. And we're going to have a little chat. We're here at the Vancouver Folk Festival, stoked that they're back. There was a question about whether or not they were going to make the pandemic, but they did. And they're here, and they're doing beautiful work and bringing this lovely artist from Cape Town, South Africa. Darek, how have you been?
I've been great.
Catch me up. What's been going on?
Well, the last week, I've had a very nice trip from a festival in Hertme in the Netherlands, Africa Festival. And I went over to San Francisco, and I've done some self-presented shows coming up the coast, which was a new experience for me to self-promote shows in the US. Nerve-wracking.
Quite courageous.
I think so. I'm going to take that. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
It was great. It was good, and they were all sold out, which was amazing. And did San Francisco, Portland, beautiful venue in Portland, and Olympia and Seattle.
Beautiful.
And so experiment went well, and it looks like a great model for how to work.
So our viewers that don't know your work, you are a guitarist from Cape Town, South Africa, but you played the guitar in a very interesting way that is in the sonic spirit and quality of the Kora. Can you just tell us a quick, how did this come about?
I think learning Kora music was part of my rehabilitation from being a classical guitarist. So 20 years ago, I heard Tumani Diabate, fell in love with the music. It was a great inspiration for me on how to approach an instrument, how to play. But it took me 10 years to start thinking, hey, maybe actually the repertoire as well could be, something that one could play, and which I hadn't thought before. So in about 2011, I recorded an album of this, like maybe half of Tumani's repertoire, called One Night on Earth.
And available streaming platforms, etc.
Yeah, there's even a few, like 8 vinyls left. And so that put me on a new. For about 10 years, I think I toured playing mostly that music. Left aside my composing and things for a while, and then probably just before the pandemic or during, I started writing music again, and I had released a few other albums around the Kora music, and translating songs of Baba Ma or Salif Keita and other Kora players like Mbaleke Sissoko.
What is it about the Kora? What is it about this heritage, this sonic spirit, lack of a better term, that provides you with such a deep well of inspiration?
It's incredible music. I mean, it's contrapuntal music. It's like Bach, but it's cyclical as well. So you have these cycles which go around. And so what for me it's like a constant space that you can just sit in. You start playing a piece of Bach and you go to the end, and then you're at the end. But this is forever, and then you can change, and so it's a wonderful space to exist in. And then as a guitar music, it has all the sort of interwoven complexity of classical music, but it had what I was missing as a South African, I suppose, where something that's a little bit more embodied than classical music as I'd received it, and it's helped me to sort of rehabilitate my approach to certain classical composers that I still feel drawn to playing.
I'm curious about because everybody's on a particular journey, especially musicians, artists. Where are you in this journey right now? Because you were trained as a classical guitarist, the Kora music was revealed to you, shall we say, and you've been on this journey with this. Where are you in this space? Because you've also been fortunate to be able to travel all over the world, and when you're traveling, you're like a troubadour. You're bringing stuff in, and then you're then putting that out to your audience. Where are you in that space?
I think, I spoke in today's concert about a composition I started writing in Calgary last year, which was exploring the idea of allowing an idea that perhaps wasn't a great idea to develop over time. That's why the guy who plays Kora music was a great handle for people to understand, that's what you do. I still, if someone says, what do you do? I don't know what to answer, but I know what to answer if I'm sitting at a concert, then so I think I'm at the stage where I'm not really thinking about the boundaries of this music or that music, or whether I have to be an improviser or a composer or an interpreter, all these divisions that we have in our heads.
Yeah.
And just arriving at the show with as much of an empty brain as possible, and playing, and sharing my experience of the day and playing what pops into my head. It's kind of like a automatic writing for guitar in a way. And then when I'm not playing a show, if I'm playing, then it's, if something interests me, then I start learning it. And it doesn't have to be all of it. I might just learn a bit. Or if you find something and then you start writing something. And so it's kind of a undirected process now.
Did you have to kind of work the concept of beginner's mind when this really started? Was there a process where you're like, okay, I'm going to play with my left hand instead of my right hand to start taking that in? Because I've been really fascinated about that process, because that most artists, once they're good, they kind of stay good, and they're afraid of sucking at something new. But you went full in. It's like, okay, I'm not saying you sucked. Obviously, you didn't. But that might,
It was a risk of sucking.
It was a risk.
Sure.
It was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Well, I went with that music. That was a great experience. Well, actually, it happened before, 10 years before. I made a record with my friend Alex van Heerden, who passed away 10 years later after that. That was 2001. And we went to a farm out of Cape Town, about an hour and a half. And we sat for a week, and we would just go and sit under a tree for 20 minutes with a big piece of paper, and we'd come up with a concept of how is this music going to move? What's the structure? What's the format? Is it phasing? Is it, And then usually Alex would populate it with the melodic element, because he was steeped in Cape jazz. And then we'd go, cool, that's enough. And we'd walk inside and we'd carry on our day. And then the next day we'd do it again. And after a week we had 7 tracks, and we recorded an album called Sachtevle, and that made a big impact on me as an experience. It was a live recording. And I think that process has stayed with me as a way to make music. And then I fall back into thinking I have to work hard sometimes, especially in those years, okay, I've got to learn this, I've got to do that. And then you come back and you're like, oh no, it all happens.
Okay.
So it goes backwards and forwards. And the beginner's mind thing is great. I recently bought a camera, like an old film camera. And I thought, I'm traveling so much, let me take a picture that's not on an iPhone, So I've also been recording on a reel-to-reel. So just finding tools that don't talk back to me, like a guitar, it asks a question, what do you want to play? And you play, The camera is great, it's just not, you can't look at it and see what the picture is. You take the picture and that's the end of it, These kind of, because all the devices we have now are so chatty, they're so needy. And that process was really informative for me, because if you go onto any blog online and you see the complexity of photography, guys talking about it forever, this and that and the other, and I was deeply uninterested in that. So I realized there were 3 variables that I needed to know, and I could ignore the rest. Now in music, it's kind of the same, but because you've been steeped in it, you think, but if I don't pay attention to that, then maybe that record's not going to do as well as it could if I used this. So I've been learning from my beginner's mind photography, and realizing, that I just want to keep it super simple. And because what I'm really interested in is this interface between the body and an instrument. And I've been playing this particular guitar for 20 years. So we have a good understanding. I know exactly how it works. I know where these tuning heads are. I know what they do. I know how they move. I know where the strings are. And that interface just becomes more fluid as time goes by, and I'm interested in what happens if I keep doing that.
Okay. So this begs another question, because you've been doing this for quite a while, and the industry that you're in, is changed pretty dramatically. And you brought up the analogy of that we're around these devices that are so chatty, that are so needy. You're in an industry which is very chatty and very needy, in order to develop a sustainable, I don't call it business, a sustainable art, which becomes a craft, which then feeds you so you can continue to do this and take care of things. In this space right now, where you don't obviously have a gigantic PR machine, and you're not on a major label, and you're not creating hits, you're not part of that system, what are your thoughts about that process? Because you obviously, you're inspiring to so many people, because you're not fussy. It's you and the guitar and the ability to present your ideas and your work and take people on a completely different journey than they were expecting. But to grow that, I don't want to use the word growth exactly, but to continue to share that and present that and make that happen. You and I know each other for quite a while, and I care about you and I support you in this, but you're traveling all over the world, you're trying to do this. The objects that you were putting out before, the CDs, that is becoming obsolete. You're an artist which is in this really interesting middle space right now, where like another format is waning and a new one is here and taking over. Obviously, we know that this is a cycle. You know, the industry has killed itself over and over and over again, and the phoenix rises. Where are you in this space right now? What are your thoughts on this?
I was talking to someone about it yesterday, and I think I'm in a bit of a sweet spot in the sense of, if you look at people who like in the mega fame realm, that's a horrible way to live. Like, who wants to, who would want to be like that? Like, to have this kind of, obviously, you can have a lot of fun and everything, but that must be hard.
Your stuff together.
If you have your stuff together, but it must be hard, for people. And then you've got people who really want to do it and can't make a living. And I'm in a kind of sweet spot where I can make a living, and it's in a weird, strange way because no one knows me. I'm just like a guy who plays guitar. But if people find out about it, they come to a concert and they enjoy it, and then they go home and they carry on their lives. And it's a very simple, way of making music. And for a while, the recording side of things felt like it was dead, exactly like you're saying. It was like, why would you make a recording? You could put it up on Bandcamp and you'd have a few people who'd buy it and you'd put it on streaming, but I didn't feel inspired. But I've been working with sort of a major label for the last few years called Platoon. Mm-hmm. And Platoon have been great. I mean, I'm not one of their big stars or one of their big earners, but they support, what I'm doing in really wonderful ways. And that has made me massively prolific. I can record all the time. So I have had the opportunity. For example, they put me in Baleke Sissoko in a studio together in London last year, and we improvised for 3 hours together, having met once very briefly. And I didn't listen to it for 3 months, and then came back to it and, pulled out the good stuff and drew it all together. And it's going to be out hopefully this year, and I'm really happy with it, and how do people hear that? Well, now Matsuli, who released One Night on Earth on vinyl, hopefully they're going to put it out on vinyl. So there's all these little things that just happen, and they kind of, and I think I want it to be the same as the music, like you could have an idea, okay, I need to get hold of a label and I need an agent and I need this. And I've just found that if you just keep playing, it kind of, things work out and something comes along and, it's kind of,
oases on the journey.
Yeah, because you can't really plan anything because you just don't know, what's going to work. And every now and again I think, this is going to die now. I don't have an agent anymore in this place. And then how am I going to play concerts? And I try and book things and it's awful. And then suddenly I find this new way, like these self-promoted shows. And then that's working. So I think you've just got to keep flowing and finding where the thing is. Physical medium. Yeah, it's sad that you can't make that you can't get that direct thing with people, but at the same time, you can travel, right?
Yeah, you can.
So that's great.
Yeah, and you don't have this percentage of people drawing from you is less, so you can actually.
I mean, I'd say the negative side of, I am getting a lot of streaming, which is great, but it's through playlists, and you really have to be careful about thinking about that. Because the last thing you want is to be making music because you're thinking about playlists.
Yeah.
So that's got to be incidental. Yeah. If the label can go, that'll work for that, but that's fine, you do that. But if you start thinking, then you can feel everything withering and dying because it's an awful medium. It's really silly.
Yeah, you got to protect yourself from the chatter so you can focus on the art.
Yeah.
And you have been, which is super successful. You are from Africa.
Mm-hmm. Sort of. I'm from Cape Town.
But it is because Africa is gigantic.
Yeah.
And this feels like it's the time for Africa all the way around. For a long time, South Africa was Ladysmith Black Mambazo, Hugh Masekela. That was all we got. Obviously, Abdul Ibrahim, there was a jazz scene and stuff like this, but it was like a trickle of stuff. You had the Kuti family, and that was it. You had these superstars.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot coming in. Obviously, Afrobeats, Burna Boy, Wizkid, and all that's coming in, but it feels like it's an opening to the complexity of Africa. And I'm curious, being an African artist, obviously, you're Caucasian, but you come from a very old country, and from the mother continent, presenting music of Africa. How are people receiving that right now? Now that they're aware much more so of Africa. We're talking about streaming and playlists. In the past, you had to find a record shop and somebody who knows what they were doing and give you a couple of things.
Yeah.
That Chris Blackwell didn't put out through Island or Paul Simon. But now there's more interest. You see much more complexity of stuff coming out. People have access to everything, which means they have access to nothing because they can't pull it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you in the space? What are your thoughts on this interesting transition?
Yeah, I don't find it easier to find music now. Like I still feel that the only way I find music is person to person. I listened to Blick Bassie after hearing him probably around the time we met.
Yeah.
And it was because I saw him. I haven't got to the point where like I can get something to suggest music to me because I need to have some kind of contextual connection to the person or the story, something. That's important. Platoon is doing a lot for, the music industry in South Africa. It's doing a lot for finding artists, giving them opportunities, and I'm hearing, some wonderful music out of their stables, some great stuff, and it's, and the fact that people can, there's a living recording industry in Cape Town, largely as a result of them, albums happening. So that's pretty exciting to see. There's a whole scene, and there continues to be a great jazz scene. Probably that's the hardest scene, I'd imagine, in some ways, because we have the same, venue problem that everyone else has, where property prices are too high and there's no venues, and so the live music thing, and the jazz guys, they need that, and they need the more sort of pop up and all over, and and that's missing, definitely in Johannesburg. And it was in Cape Town. I moved up to Johannesburg, and then it kind of, I don't know where it is. We're waiting for the next wave.
Okay.
In that.
You survived the pandemic?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
I had a good time. I started an ashram.
Didn't you know?
I did, yeah. I started an online group of people who meet up from all over the world, and we started as a WhatsApp group. I would broadcast out to them via Zoom, and they would listen in, muted, play along, and that has continued for going on 4 years now with a big group of people. My practice now is a communal thing. So if I'm sitting and I'm learning a piece, I'm doing it with the people there. So it's allowed me to focus on the details, on the geeky parts, on developing new repertoire and exploring old things, and to interact with a group of people who are interested in the nuts and bolts of what I do. And that's given me such appreciation for the people who listen, and the people's journey to learn and to free themselves up on an instrument because they have always wanted to play an instrument but couldn't. So I learned, that was great, and it opened up, as I said, you're always looking for these new flows, and who knew that the learning could be a flow that could be a place that you could exist in. And it gave me a resilience financially that allowed me not to rely on touring, which then made the touring able to be more intentional, find new directions, not be so desperate, because it used to be August, I've got nothing. So that could be more, and it's actually allowed the touring to really move in a much better way, a little bit slower.
This answers my question that I had for you before. It's like, what are some of the things that you're looking at in this new modality of the business? And how do you actually connect with your fans, and how do you create a opportunity for them to support you?
The thing that excites me is in 2011, I released One Night on Earth, that album you mentioned, and I did it as a crowd-funded album. But before, I don't know if there was crowdfunding sites at the time. They certainly weren't available in South Africa. So it was crowdfunding as in, this is my bank account, you know. And then I put it on Bandcamp for any price, including zero. And I really loved that. I really loved that loads of people downloaded it for free, and loads of people paid, and loads of people paid more. Some people paid less. And I found that exciting because there was an organic movement, and the advertising was the album itself. So people who just came across it could download it, you know. And I've been looking for ways of expanding that. And of course that died because, you know, then we were giving our music away for free all the time. So that was disappointing at the time. But finding more flows like that with the with playing live is really, and being able to be in a place for longer. You know, the usual model, you get booked somewhere and then you can't go back to that place for, you know, 6-month radius sometimes. And I love what, you know, classical musicians back in the 20s, they'd go to New York, they'd play a concert, it would go well, they'd play another one, they'd end up playing for 2 weeks. And that way you can build an audience. I just always felt that, you know, if I go to New York and I play a gig as part of some festival, I go back there in a year's time. In the meantime, I'm here and there. You're never building anything, you know, you're not getting that communication going. So I'm finding ways now to do like longer residencies, go to Seattle, play 4 concerts, you know.
Darek, thank you.
Thank you
so much. We have time maybe for one song?
Cool.
Okay.